I was having a row with my mate about the Beatles. I went, oh, let it be.
Chatting Tracks. Let's talk music.
Thanks, Robbie and Chatting Tracks. Welcome to today's episode. I've got a fantastic one for you. So, the Beatles have just released Let It Be on Disney Plus on May the 8th. And I'm asking, is it too late to release this film? And do we need it? That's what I'm asking. I've got superfan Glenn Roberts with me today, and we discussed the film. Hope you enjoy it.
So, tell me, Glenn, how did your Beatles journey start?
Well, basically, I mean, my mum was a massive, massive Beatles fan. I mean, I'm talking huge. If there was anything Beatles-wise, she had it, or she watched it, or she knew about it. Well, I say knew about it, but she was really, really big into the Beatles. And especially Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney was her go-to. And I didn't really, obviously, I grew up in the 80s. So I knew who Paul McCartney was, but I didn't know who the other Beatles were, because she used to play a lot of Paul McCartney stuff. I mean, my first sort of introduction to Paul McCartney, I would say, was probably Tug of War. Fantastic album, one of my favourites of his. And I specifically remember, my favourite, well, I specifically remember is Wanderlust. She used to play that one all the time, and it's one of the ones I could never get bored of. And so I knew that, and I saw, well, we obviously got the classic thing of him with the headphones and all that on the cover. And so I knew who Paul McCartney was. And then when she had a record collection out one time, and I saw an album that had four people on it, four faces in squares. And I could clearly see Paul McCartney, even though he had a beard. And I was like, Paul McCartney? And she went, yeah, that's the Beatles. I went, who are the Beatles? She went, that's the band Paul McCartney was in before he went solo. And I had no comprehension of what solo meant. It was like, I just assumed Paul McCartney just sprung up and just started as he was. And then I listened to that, and the song that really struck me on that one was Across the Universe. Never heard anything like it. It was really sort of surreal, but at the same time, there was something sort of haunting and melodic about it. It just sort of caught my ear. And I told her, I said, who sings that? And she said, that's John. And I wanted to know more about John. And that's when she sort of tragically told me about his past. Because, this we're talking about 1984, 1985, when I'm asking these questions here. And I was kind of obsessed with him afterwards. And the first album after that I listened to was the John Lennon collection. That was one that my dad owned. I went through the entire catalogue. After that, I wanted to know everything about this guy. I wanted to know everything about the Beatles. And basically the Beatles sort of like sprung up from that, and I've been a massive fan ever since. And I've collected all kinds of memorabilia, all kinds of junk. I mean, I've been to Liverpool, my Mecca several times. I've seen all the movies several times. It's just been a big part of my life.
It's amazing. Like, everyone has their own Beatles story, their own journey, and but everyone loves them exactly the same. It's a crazy journey, isn't it? It's wonderful. So, obviously, we've just had Let It Be released from Disney. So, the question I'm asking, is it necessary to release it now? Why do you think it's necessary to bring it out?
I think it's necessary to bring it out because it never was. It's, this is a film that was shot in 1970. Well, it came out in 1970, and it literally came out the month after the Beatles had broke up. They'd announced they'd broken up, and then this film comes out. So everyone's kind of in mourning of a band that's no longer there, and they're going to the cinema to watch a band that they know's not there. And this film, literally, it shows this band imploding right in front of their eyes. There's bickering, there's nastiness and things like that. And it was never, ever released on VHS or DVD or anything after that. It's almost like the legendary movie that is out there, but you're not allowed to see. It's like, what's so bad about this movie? And yeah, it's a heartbreaking movie. It really is, because, like I say, you literally see these people at their lowest. They're literally, as this is happening, that each one of them's thinking, this is the end. Can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And I think it's necessary because it is part of Beatle history. And part of Beatle history that I think is one of those films that any Beatle fan should watch.
Yeah.
If you are a Beatles fan. But at the same time, I also think that the Get Back documentary is detrimental to it.
Cool. And we'll get back to that in a minute. Yeah. Get to that in a minute. I mean, you're right. You couldn't get a copy for love nor money anyway. This is my original bootleg copy that I had.
Just up there as well.
I think everybody owned this one. It's got a certain colour to the disc as well on the back.
It's not quite legit.
And then I had a follow-up, which was like the Get Back one, which was the Winter of Discontent, which features lots of black and white footage and just audio and stuff. But it's a wonderful watch if you were trying to get a bit more than the original bootleg and stuff like that. Do you think it's too late to release it now? Oh, because you obviously Get Back's been released. Should they have just held on to it, or should they have done it first?
I think maybe it should have come out beforehand, personally, because you can refresh, and then when you get back comes afterwards, it shows it in a complete. It's always a completely different story. It's like the original version was we wanted to send out a specific message, but then a little later down the line, it's like, no, the real message was this. You edited this message to make something that it never was meant to be. And it's a strange one because I like both of them for very, very different reasons. I like Let It Be because it's Let It Be. It's fantastic. It's part of Beat history. The music's great, and you can see them in genuine light. I prefer Get Back because it is a lot more rounded. You do see a lot more, and it's not as negative as it was first led out to be. I mean, in Get Back, in Let It Be, John seems hardly involved at all. He just doesn't seem interested. He's more interested in being with Yoko. He'll have the odd occasional quip here and there. And this is from a guy who was legendary quipping. His wit was right up there with the best of them. He always had something to say. He always had some put down or some magical word to say, someone that could always spark any kind of argument. And George, he just seemed really, really argumentative. And it was all aimed at Paul. I can understand why it was aimed at Paul. Paul McCartney, he kind of took over the reins after Brian died. They were kind of directionless, and I think he didn't want the band to fail. He didn't want them to quit. He wanted to carry on going. And I think he was pushing in a direction that at first they didn't really want to go, but they went anyway. It was just a case of, this became the Paul project. And it's as good as this. I'm still bringing out fantastic music, but you can see, especially, from my liking, from I'd say Sgt. Pepper onwards, everything became very Paul dominated. Everything was very, very, it had his something. Just look at, as John used to call it, the Tragical Mystery Tour. It was one of those things that had him stamped all over it. If anyone's seen Give My Regards to Broad Street, you can see who's stamped all over it, because it's almost the same movie. It's like a studio road trip with just all things all over the place. It's kind of really jangled and nothing seems to really gel or make sense.
Yeah.
And that was basically Magical Mystery Tour.
I think what's nice about the Get Back sessions now, with Let It Be in particular, is, I think you do need to watch it in a reverse order now. I think you do need to watch Get Back and then Let It Be, because you see the George leaving build up. In the original one, the Let It Be one, he just sort of gets dumped a little bit. Yeah, touches the microphone, gets electrocuted, says, right, I'm going now. Whereas when you watch the Get Back sessions, you can see the build up to the leaving, and he's coming up with these songs which end up on All Things Much Past, which is just phenomenal. And they're ignoring it, they're going, oh yeah, and then it's, I'll play if you want me to play, and it's just, it just makes me wonder, is it too late to have brought it out? Should they just let it? Like, the mythology behind Let It Be was that it was a horrible time for them, and which it was to a degree, and it was a horrible recording, and then when you watch Get Back, you realise it's not that at all. It's almost a bit like they lifted the lid off and then put the lid back on again, in the sense of So, do you think they should have released it, or should they just kept it in the can for like collectors that want to get bootlegs and things like that?
No, I think it should be released. I think it's one of those things that it should be out there, because whether for good or bad, it should be out there. It's like anything. Obviously, being a mess, there's a couple of songs obviously weren't out there, but they are, and they should be out there. Revolution 9, for example, which isn't so much a song; it's just a collection of noises and tape loops and John saying number nine. It's just it's a bit of a mess, but it's part of Beatle mythology, part of lore and all that. So it needs to be out there. And I think it's one of those things that, because it did come out, it was released at the cinema. This isn't like a a movie that they made and never ever released it.
Yeah.
You can kind of understand them not bringing that up, but this is something that the public, I mean, especially Beatle fans of today, this is something that did come out. This is something that was out there. People got a chance to see it. Yeah, it was a really bad time. Because like I said, the band had literally split up the months before. And you're now going to see this movie and you're depressed enough as it is. And then you see the outcome of the movie and you're coming out wanting to slit your wrists. It's not a happy movie at all. The music's fantastic, but it's not a happy time at all. Whereas Get Back it's a marvelous movie. It shows everything in a completely different light. The stuff that was happening in Let It Be, like you said, it expands on that, and then you say, yeah, in Get Back, he gets electrocuted. He's like, that's it, I'm off, I've had enough. So no, he didn't happen like that. He was kind of laughing and joking about that, And then there was a bit of tension between him and Paul. He felt he wasn't being taken seriously as a songwriter or an artist by John and Paul. So he decided, that's it, I'm not coming back anymore. And then you've got this sequence where you've got the audio, but not the video of John and Paul talking about it, saying, we've got to try and speak to him and all that. And then you have the message where they kept going over and speaking to him. It took a couple of weeks to get him back. No, it wasn't an overnight sort of thing. It wasn't a case of, well, I've got the arm, going back, oh, I'm back now. It was, it expands on a lot of stuff, and it's really, really important.
Yeah. Did Get Back change the meaning of Let It Be for you? Did it sort of soften it as a movie? Did it make it more confusing as a movie? Did you sort of say, what's the point of it? Or
it angered me, if anything. Angered me because it was a case of, this was a deliberate attempt to paint things in a negative light. Especially certain people, that they really didn't do John any justice. It was a case of, they kept showing Yoko and him and sort of whispering and talking all that, and it made it look like she was the reason he left, it's over because of her and things like that. And I think that was a little bit underhanded, considering, in the press were kind of negative towards Maria. I think the press had a lot to do with that. They thought, we can sensationalise this a little bit, she's like the one who's going to break up the Beatles, when it didn't really happen. As all real Beatle fans know, it didn't happen that way at all. Yeah, he was infatuated with her. He found his reason with her, but they all split up because the band had just run its course.
Yeah.
They've been together for so long, and, it was a case of, if we carry on, we're going to end up hating each other more than anything. And whatever we've done before this is just going to be marred because of it. Because we're not going to produce anything quality. It'll end up being songs that taking digs at each other.
Do you think, like you said, there some people got painted in a negative light? Is that because Peter Jackson said quite, honestly in the Get Back documentary, excuse me, that a lot of times they were talking and playing guitar deliberately so they couldn't use footage. So do you think at the time it was a Lindsay Hogg cut because he couldn't do anything with the footage? Like, he would have this amazing conversation, but someone would be playing guitar or bass. So do you think someone got painted that way because of the material at the time?
I think, yes, there's some of that. Because literally, like I said, editing a film takes a fair amount of time. So between the band breaking up with the release, the editing wasn't happening there. It was happening during, or just before. But I also think that they could have shown things in, like I said, the footage was there. There is footage there. You can edit, because if you notice, if you've seen the actual Let It Be, there is out of sync with lips and things like that, because, things are happening where they're not actually happening at that time, but conversations are happening in it. So they could have painted it in a more positive light if they chose to. But it's just that it seemed like, they thought, this is the end, so we're going to show the public why this is the end. That's kind of how it came across to me. And then Get Back comes along and says, no, you're wrong.
I get what you mean. Yeah, it kind of painted a story with an ending rather than an open verdict.
And it also made the audience pick sides. The audience are going to pick sides to some degree anyway, but this really made them pick sides. Are you in a John camp? Are you in the George camp? Are you in the Paul camp? Everyone was in the Ringo camp because Ringo was just kind of inoffensive. He was, I mean, even when he was getting the ump and all that, it was a case of, all right, Reed.
Oh, bless him. Has your opinion of Let It Be changed since Get Back?
Sorry?
Has your opinion of Let It Be changed since Get Back?
It has to a degree. I mean, it's one of those films that I just take it for what it is. And since Get Back came out, it's like, oh, this is so much better now. I mean, you kind of wish that been the one that had been released. All right, it's not really possible because it's like, what, 6-hour movie. So they're never going to be able to sit through a cinema or a 6-hour movie. But yeah, they chopped it down. They did this. It's not the happiest of films, but like I said, it's a necessary film.
Do you think because of Get Back, Ringo and Paul's relationship to the Let It Be movie has changed?
I think it has, yeah. Because I remember that Paul wasn't overly keen on the Get Back movie at all. He wasn't against them doing it, but he didn't really want any kind of involvement. He was like, oh, it's what it is. It wasn't very happy. Peter Jackson actually called him and told us, you need to come and have a look. He didn't really want to because he knew it was a bit of a dodgy time. But he told us, no, seriously, come and have a look. It's not how you remember it. And he went. Well, obviously, I can imagine there was slight trepidation. All that. He's like, do I have to go through this again? It was bad enough the first time. But he said when he watched it and had cleaned it up and the audio and all the stuff that was going on, he was like, oh, I remember that. I remember there was sort of things happening that a lot more happiness and a lot more, do you know what I mean? Especially between him and John. I mean, Get Back really paints John in a much, much, much more positive light than Let It Be did. So much more. He's more involved. He seems eager at times. There's times where Paul's doing a thing and he's like strumming along and just coming along and just pick up the guitar and just strum along and join in. Whereas Get Back doesn't really show that. Get Back, it just shows that, he turns up and then he's there and he's hardly smiling throughout most of it. He's just sort of almost blankly staring into space. And this is a lot better. They seem like they're having a good time in some spaces. And you can kind of see that there's still a great bond between John and Paul.
Yeah.
Fantastic bond. I mean, that's something, even during the breakup, and I think the press embellished a lot of the negativity between them because they were still phoning each other on a regular basis when they were broken up. They were still phoning each other. Yeah, they'd take shots at each other because, brothers do. Best mate, you have a little pot shot at your mate, or but you still phone and chat and shoot the shit and things like that. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing. I mean, the whole how do you sleep and the whole Ram incident and things like that, it was like, then I thought, it was this massive bump in tension. So John heard a song, he thought it was a dig at him, so he made a song a dig at Paul. The fact that both of them are fantastic songs is irrelevant, but it was, but as John said, after he wrote it and he performed it and he listened back to it, he was like, how do you sleep? It was like, crap, this is actually about me. He was taken more surprised by Sergeant Pepper and this, that, the other.
What I was amazed at is that when you look at the Get Back documentary and then you look at Let It Be, he didn't put Paul writing Get Back in it. You had the footage. I mean, don't get me wrong, we know now it's one of the best songs they ever produced and it's amazing.
Criminal, really, when you think of it. Even just to show like the origin of where it's you didn't have to do everything they didn't Get Back. If you kind of just show that origin of, we first seen strumming those first few chords, all that, and coming up with, those first few little bits of lyrics, it's magic. It's showing the creative process that they were doing. They just start, they just sit there and all of a sudden start popping their head and start drumming it, and all of a sudden words start spewing out. Sometimes it's just gobbledygook, but it's just magic to watch. I mean, in Get Back, when you see that happen, you're like, this is the moment. This is the moment that song sort of comes into the world.
I mean, when I watched that, my mouth literally dropped open, and it just says, Paul's about to write Get Back, and I was just like, wow. And also, there's less Billy Preston in the original Let It Be movie as well, and obviously Billy comes in for quite a while, and he's there quite a bit, and it's nice that Billy gets the recognition he deserves in the Get Back documentary.
Absolutely. I mean, because there was rumour that John George and Ringo wanted him to join the Beatles, but Paul was kind of dead set against it. He was like, no, it's the four of us. You know, we don't want another member. You know, it's not the Beatles then. But, you know, he was amazingly important to that album.
Yeah.
Amazingly important. I mean, the organ work he does in there, I mean, it's miles above anything anywhere near that time period.
Yeah.
And it adds so much more depth to the music as well. Especially when you listen to Let It Be Naked.
Yeah.
I mean, the organ played there, I mean, because obviously Phil Spector got hold of it and a lot of the stuff he kind of took out as well. And when you hear it played for what it was, it's almost a better album, really.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I like about the, you know, almost this release of Let It Be is closing the book on it finally for me, because you obviously had the album versions. You had the Let It Be Naked, which I think is the superior album of the original, to be fair. I think Paul was right to strip all the reverb off and stuff like that. And it kind of closed the door on it. And then once you get the Get Back ones and it shows you under the hood, you know, and you realise that Let It Be was its own story and this is a completely different story. I think it's wonderful that it's been released because it's just closed the lid on the whole thing, which is definitely necessary and needed. And also there was a book out at the time and the book was quite dreary looking as well. It was, you know, it didn't look too happy as well. If they could now turn around and use Peter Jackson's technology on the next series of films, what would you like to see next?
Yeah, Anthologies.
Yeah, great choice. I'd say the Anthologies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some of the stuff. I mean, I'd like a reissue of Free as a Bird and Real Love.
Yeah,
because as good as those songs are, there's certain. It sounds very electrical. It sounds very. John doesn't sound like John.
Yeah,
for the most part. I think if they could do what they did for Now and Then, with that would just make those songs so much more. I mean, I love Now and Then. I thought it was a fantastic song, and I know Pete said, "Oh, he wasn't too keen on it at first," but I actually said to him, I said, "Watch the video." I said, "Watch the video." I said, "When you see the video, you see the song in a completely different light." And he came back to me a couple of days later. And he said, "Yeah, I watched the video, and you were right."
Yeah,
I don't think it's still up there for him, but the video does add a lot more to it. I mean, it's a fantastic song as it is. I mean, George was never a fan of it. I mean, when they first got the recordings, it wasn't just John. He wasn't overly happy. But the only one that he really did like was Free as a Bird.
Yeah,
because he said we had a lot more to do, because Free as a Bird, it was literally just John saying "free as a bird," you know, and they do those basic lyrics and all that. So that song was more of a Beatles song because they had to add so much more to it.
Yeah. What I would like is I'd like the Anthology series, but I'd like another couple of discs on the end following their solo careers up until Now and Then. I think that'd be really nice. Glenn, it's been wonderful chatting to you today about this Let It Be project and Get Back. Thanks for joining me today. And yeah, thanks, man. It's been really fun.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you like the film? Do you not like the film? Should they have released it? Should they have not bothered? I'd love your opinion on it. And, you know, is it just one of the things you have to own if you're a Beatles fan? Let me know if you saw the Beatles live, and let me know what you think of the album Let It Be itself. I think it's an absolute cracker, especially the naked version. But let me know what you think of it. Do you prefer the original version or the naked version? Anyway, also the big ask, if you could subscribe, that'd be absolutely amazing. And I get to talk about music stuff all day long. And it'd be brilliant. I'd love to do that. You've already done it. Thank you so much. You're absolutely incredible. You don't realize how much you've helped me, because one click can change my life. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one. Love and peace.